Hello everyone, my name is DM Rawlings, I am the 10-Minute DM. I am an experienced Forged in the Dark GM, and I am here to offer some advice 10 minutes at a time. So we are now halfway through our Consequence series, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different today to celebrate. Today, we're going to talk about how I practice coming up with consequences in the first place. So, when you're running Forged in the Dark games, applying a fun and meaningful consequence is the GM's second most important responsibility. It's also the most difficult thing for GMs that come from other games to do. Why is it hard? Well, for most GMs, it's their first time assessing consequences or mixed success or partial success or whatever you want to call them. They're highly contextual and improv heavy, and the better the consequences, usually the better the play experience. So the stakes are pretty high on these. Fortunately, creating consequences is a skill. It's something that you can hone, something that you can practice. It's something that will improve over time the more you do it. I am still learning new stuff about consequences all the time. So, how do I get that practice in? I'll give you 3 different things that I do. The first is the lowest stress way, which is to have a retrospective on your game after the fact and break that session down. You've got a little bit of distance and time to consider other options, and always in these games, there are decisions that I make and consequences that I apply that I know I didn't like. And then sometimes there are consequences that I think were fine, I guess, but they could be better. So often during these moments, I'm going back through the session, finding moments where I think that I didn't do my best, and I'm asking, should this have even had an action roll? Did I set the stakes right? Did I pick the right kind of consequence? Complication versus harm versus reduced effect. And then I'm trying on other options. I'm trying to come up with 3 to 5 possible consequences, and then argue among myself which of those was best. And if it was a partial success, I'll try thinking about things for full failures. And if they're failures, then I'll try coming up with things for mixed success. Now, the advantage to this is it's highly applicable. It's your characters in your scenarios, so it's very hands-on and you know it intimately. On the negative side, it's fairly low frequency. You don't get a lot of instances to really review during this. And not everyone has the focus to kind of go back to the tape. I know I'm really not fond of hearing my voice. Of course, ever since starting this, I'm getting a little bit better at that. Second option, running side saddle. So alternatively, if you're watching an actual play or you're a player in a game, you can kind of play along with the GM. And whenever the GM is calling for a roll, you can start thinking, what kind of consequence would I apply in this situation? Should they have called for that roll? Did they set the appropriate stakes? Was the GM's consequence fun and meaningful? Could they have done something to tweak it to make it just a little more interesting? And then again, consider other options. Try coming up with a few alternative consequences, different kinds of consequences. Try mixing up failure and mixed success and seeing what you're getting. The advantage here is you're already highly engaged in whatever it is that you're watching the session, which means that now you have even more reasons to stick very close to it, and you're also exposed to new approaches. So when a GM is trying something that you wouldn't have thought of, you can take that and go, I like that, and you can just add it to your toolbox, right? So you're learning along the way from that. On the downside, it's still fairly low frequency, and you don't get a chance to find out what might have happened because you don't know the scenario as well. Third one, just watching stuff. My favorite way, by the way, to practice consequences is just by watching media, TV shows, movies, reading books, whatever, and asking questions. When a character gets to an interesting decision point, pretend that they're making an action roll. What is the action? What are the stakes? How might it go wrong with a mixed success or a failure? And then look at what happened in the actual story itself and say, was this the most fun, most meaningful thing that could have happened? Was there a way you could tweak it to make it more intense in the moment? And in slower parts, you can also try coming up with different kind of ways that you might have treated this mixed success or this failure. And the real advantage here is while you're watching something, you are going to get lots of reps in. There's going to be lots of chances to try to practice this. But on the downside, maybe there's too many chances. It can be hard to really lean into it and things can overwhelm. Do remember that you can always press pause and take a break if you need to. So with all that in mind, I thought maybe we'd try something a little bit different here. So this is one of my favorite movies from the 20th century, The Matrix. In this opening scene, we'll see Trinity fight some guards and escape from some agents. As we go through it, I'm going to be talking over it with my thoughts about when actions are happening and what interesting consequences might be. And obviously, spoilers for The Matrix, but it is more than 20 years ago, which makes me sad. So let's go. We see Trinity here, about to be arrested, but ready to fight back. She is going to initiate an action roll to start a fight. And obviously, in this particular case, these police officers are normal people, and Trinity is capable of doing something like what she's doing right now. So I would normally consider this low stakes, but they do have firearms, which means that she is very capable of getting hurt if she gets clipped. I'd call this a normal stakes roll. So 1, maybe 2 actions to resolve that entire combat sequence. There's no need to unduly kind of force her down. And this one looked like it was a complete success. But if it was a partial success, obviously harm would come into play because there are weapons that characters have been showing. Other things might be that the fight takes longer than you would have wanted, so the agents are now closer. Now obviously the hard line's been cut. She's running away. She has to get to a second point. We're in a chase scenario. And at this point she can see that the ground level is now occupied. That might have been another consequence from the previous rolls, by the way. Now she has to go up to the roofs. And as she goes, she is going to make a jump here. I don't think this jump is worth a roll. It's not a big deal for her at all. She makes it effortlessly, as does the agent. And then we see a few of the guards not able to do that, getting partial successes, stumbling, almost falling. No one actually completely failing, which obviously this is television, you wouldn't want to see that. And now we approach a point where the agent is going to draw their firearm just as the jump is about to occur. And all of this together, in my mind, is a single roll. So we're putting the gun, we're exposing it, and saying this is a possible consequence if you fail. And here we can see that Trinity makes it the entire way across, as does the agent. So was this a full success? Possibly. But we do see as well that the clock is ticking down, and we know that at the end of this scene she has to get to a certain point before the truck destroys the phone booth. So the longer that she takes here to deal with the situation, and here again another action roll. This is probably medium, possibly high stakes, but here at this precise moment I'm going to freeze it just like Trinity is frozen. In my mind, this is mind marks that she has taken here. She is freaked out that the agent is going to jump directly in, so we are applying a consequence, which is some kind of harm. But I would also say that she freezes here for longer than she needs to, and if what that's causing is the agents to be able to get closer to shutting down her exit point. So if I had a danger clock that I'd introduced, I would be counting up the danger clock here to indicate that she now has less time to actually escape with. So let's keep going. She eventually gets up and figures it out. Now she's going to approach the scene with the phone booth.
Get up.
Stumbling around, no more direct agent conflict, but there it is. There's the truck, and now we have a significant high-stakes move. There is a truck careening towards this phone booth. If she doesn't make this roll, we know what's going to happen here. So take a look, and she makes it. But even despite all of this, we are going to see a couple of lingering consequences from all the action that has occurred when the agents say that they know who the mark was, that they've already begun to trace him, and for any of the rolls that may have happened during that action sequence. These might be the possible loose ends that were left behind from this particular action.
We have the name of their next.
So, remember, you can do this with any TV show. It doesn't just have to be action scenes either. It can be any ones where there's conflict and uncertain outcomes. And I guarantee you that the more you look at these particular scenes, the better you're going to be, the easier it's going to get. So to summarize, consequences are really tricky for new GMs, but they're also pretty important. Fortunately, applying consequences is a learned skill. It's something that you can practice, and it is something that you will gradually expand your repertoire with the more that you go. And the more that you do it, once again, the easier this will be when you're sitting down at the table with your players. Anyways, I've been DM Rawlings. I am the 10-Minute DM. If you're loving this stuff so far, please hit that subscribe button. I really would love it.